NewGenGamers.com.
Here on Console Wars of the Past, part 2 point something, we're looking at Super Mario Brothers.
Alright.
And Ray will be playing the part of Mario today. He's wearing a Goomba shirt with the phrase "Game Over" on it, as to entice the Goombas into submitting to his will. And so far, they are. So here is the seminal Nintendo Entertainment System game. The game that virtually everyone's played, virtually everyone knows, and made this character on screen the most known character in the world. More known than Jesus, I'm gonna say.
Or at least in video game history.
He's ranks pretty high up there. He did, according to real research and polls done, become more recognizable than Mickey Mouse and other famous cartoon characters. He was the most known fictional cartoon character. So that's very significant.
Yeah, that's a really good accolade right there.
So this was another one done by Shigeru Miyamoto. Now, going back to the story in our previous episode, Nintendo released the Magnavox Odyssey in Japan for Magnavox and distributed it. So they decided they could do this themselves. Hiroshi Yamauchi was a harsh, brash man and said, "We could do this. We have talented individuals. Let's make our own." So he puts Gunpei Yokoi and R&D number 1 on the task of creating the Color TV game, released in 1977 in Japan, and it was a Pong Odyssey clone machine, like a Sears Telegame. All of those machines were essentially the same.
Of course, I have to grab every coin along the way.
Ray is compulsive when it comes to coins.
At least with this game.
So, the machine was released, and that got Nintendo into the home hardware market. They would later on release the Game & Watch machines during 1980 and 1981, also designed by Gunpei Yokoi, which would later be the inspiration for the Game Boy. But we'll talk more about those if we do a console wars for Game Boy. So this was the next huge hit for them after Donkey Kong. And again, it came from Miyamoto-san. He became prolific. And the guy is a futurist, and he thinks very outside the box. And as we spoke about Donkey Kong, it was unlike any other game. There was no other game where you had to jump barrels and a donkey or a monkey was up there taking a girl. There was nothing else like that. It was very, very odd. And so is this game. This same character that was in the Donkey Kong game, the protagonist Jumpman, who was given a name for this title.
Which, he got his name
yes,
from the, basically the landlord of Nintendo of America. He was a pudgy Italian dude that came in and, was asking for the rent money. And they decided to name the character after him because he looks so similar to their character Jumpman. So hence Mario was born from a landlord.
So that's how Mario became a fat Italian plumber. Because he was a bad Italian stereotype of the landlord collecting rent. So it's very appropriate.
Now, the idea behind Miyamoto coming up with this game was he basically came up with an idea of, what if you could just walk down the street and you hit something that you don't know is there, and you find it.
Miyamoto views the world as a theoretical physicist. He views the world as multidimensional and views the possibility of alternate dimensions and applies that to these game designs. And so that was the question: is what if there were things that weren't there? What if there were alternate things that you could not see?
And he just ran with that with this, and
like that right there, that hidden little block. There are hidden tricks and items all throughout this game, which gave it a lot of replayability. Even though the levels are the same, it was a challenge to find where all the little tricks and hidden items were. And that was one of the first games to offer a lot of that kind of Easter egg type experience. You know, not as just one little thing. That it's all through it's littered throughout the game.
He hid things throughout this entire game,
such as the ability of being able to beat the game in 5 minutes if you know where the time warps are. If you know how to fly through it all, you can beat the game in 5 minutes.
But if you take your time, it could take you over 2-3 hours, if you're not that great at it.
So there again, Miyamoto plays with the idea of time and space and alternate dimensions and alternate realities.
And vines out of nowhere.
And vines that go nowhere, out of nowhere. Just really crazy, just off-the-wall ideas.
Oh, well.
that nobody else could really imagine. And it really is people call his design sometimes very childlike and very family-oriented, but I really look at them as very science fiction-y and very
visionary. Is a good word.
Yeah, very visionary, very just outside of the box, theoretically thinking what could possibly be reality. And
Miyamoto's games are never ones that you just kill things.
Yeah, it's not exactly. We were discussing that earlier, and before Miyamoto came along, that pretty much was what games were about. Was you had Pong, which was a two-player affair, but after that, when games began to get depth during the Atari era, it was basically kill things. And most games that have come out and that we've seen, you kill things. But in Miyamoto's game, there's always that other thing. Like, yeah, you have to kill things here, but that's not really what it's about. It's more about the experience.
And just sometimes the level design is always of his games are so well thought out.
And they're so weird. I wanted Ray to play through this level because in some of our other videos we've looked at some of the other levels.
This is one you don't see very often.
This is one you don't see often, and you see how everything's black and white and just very dark and ominous and weird, and they use a lot of subtle effects in the game. I mean, it's not a masterwork in ambiance, but it's just the concepts and ideas, and then the fact that the gameplay is impeccable, and Miyamoto created a standard for how a game should be played, and that everyone has copied since then. Game designs since Miyamoto's games have almost all copied off of his original designs in some way. He's prolific.
スーパーマリオブラザーズ秘密の力で大きく変身地上に地下に海に空に次々に展開する不思議な世界スーパーマリオブラザーズ
New Gen Gamers.com